Hello, I'm Paulina Larocca, and this is my new book, The Holy Bible. No, it's not printed upside down. This is the way it really looks. It is a disruptive, creative, and enlightened look at creativity, and it is available at Kinakuya Bookstore. So let me tell you a little bit about this book. This is my third book on creativity, but this book is actually quite a lot different than the others. This book really goes into the personal aspects of the creative problem-solving process. It looks at it not just from a place of ideas, but it really looks deeper inside ourselves and actually looks at our whole being. And it says, what is it about us that is innately creative, and how do we bring that out? It also takes a look at the full complement of our emotions. It looks at the darker, the negative stuff, the troubles, the frustrations, and integrates it with the happiness and the joy that we usually associate with creativity to give you the complete picture. I like to say, if you're looking for 3 easy tips on how to be more creative, then you've come to the wrong place. If you're really looking for a nuanced understanding of your creative powers and how you can release them both professionally and personally, you have come to the right place. This book will, very creative. Give you the back cover as well as the front cover. This book will actually give you some really deep insights into yourself and how to generate breakthroughs. In this book, I have created a concept called creative enlightenment, and it comes from my personal experiences and struggles in writing this book. It comes from a place of both darkness and transcendent joy. And the reality is, you cannot get to transcendent joy unless you experience the traumas. Was that too dark? Maybe, but certainly the traumas and the turmoils of going through darker spaces to actually arrive at the light. And it's interesting that those are concepts that are well known within enlightenment and spiritual transformation, and they are applicable to our creative journey as well. One of the things that I challenge in my book is that a lot of creativity we talk about in terms of happiness and joyfulness and ideas and childlike, and certainly that is an aspect of creativity, but it's not the only aspect of our creativity. Our creativity is like life. It is much more nuanced. It has ups and it has downs and it has swings and roundabouts. It has moments of pure joy and it has moments of being completely lost. And this book is reflective of all of those moments and gives you strategies rather than tools, strategies to help you actually work through them more productively, to come out and actually be more in touch with a deeper and more resonant form of your creativity. I like to think of this book as a life-changing book, something that you won't read once, but something that you can actually have for the entirety of your life, and that you can go deeper and deeper into the concepts and the strategies that I've pulled out. In this vlog today, what I would like to do is I'd like to take you through just one of the strategies of the 12 that I've outlined in the book. And it's a really important strategy, as they all are, but this one is easy to apply, fundamental to life, easy to teach, and a little bit harder to implement. But the beauty of it is you'll understand the concept immediately, but in order to truly apply it takes work. And I think that anything in life that is worthy and worthwhile does take work. So what am I talking about? I am talking about the concept of deferring judgment. As I said, these are deceptively simple concepts that are much harder to actually do because we are natural judges. We spend our whole life judging things, and suddenly to be asked not to not to not judge. It's just to defer or to suspend that moment of judgment and allow a space in between where you just accept the idea, the thought, the concept, the moment in front of you, and stop trying to make it something other than what it is, and see it with fresh, naive eyes. As I said, these are harder concepts to actually apply than they are to teach. So let me take you a step back and talk a little bit more about where deferring judgment comes from. You may have been to a brainstorming where somebody has said, hey, there are no bad ideas in this session. And I bet you felt a bit skeptical, because there are bad ideas. There really are bad ideas. If I suggest that you jump off a high roof, that's a bad idea, unless you have a parachute and tons of paramedics underneath. But what they're really trying to say is, try not to judge ideas as they come up. And though I will use ideas a lot as I'm talking, you could say the same for anything. Try not to judge the moment. Try not to judge the concept. Try not to judge the thought as it comes up. And just suspend that judgment momentarily. There is a place for judgment, that is for sure, but it's how and when you apply it that counts. And I'll repeat that. There is a place for judgment, but it's how and when you apply it that counts. So I'll give you kind of a professional view of this. We were doing an ideation session, or throwing around ideas, for a logistics company on how to actually improve their distribution for their trucks. And someone came up with this idea about, what about let's look at Santa Claus? Now on that face of it, that's a dumb idea. I mean, Santa Claus doesn't exist last I checked. But when you suspend judgment and learn how to defer it, and not rush in to judge the person for suggesting it, you start to see that there are some real possibilities there. When you look at all the attributes of Santa Claus and what he can do, that he has an unusual system of actually creating merchandise, distributing merchandise. It's in 24 hours. You pay Santa in an unusual way. You pay him in cookies and cream. And he delivers in an unusual way. He delivers in small parcels down a tiny little chute. And when you start to play with this, you really start to get to two things. Some practical aspects of how you could actually improve or think differently about delivery. And you also go into some emotional aspects about what is it that makes Santa such a joyful thing, even as adults, that we can't help but be caught up in the moment of Christmas. What is it about this fairy tale that actually brings us so much joy, and how can we incorporate that into our thinking? That is a beautiful example of learning how to defer judgment in a practical setting and really just kind of play with ideas and see their possibilities. But when we're talking in a personal setting, we're actually really talking less about you judging others and really talking more about you judging yourself, you judging the moment, and it's almost like you're wishing or trying to force something to be something that it's not. And this is where the power of judgment really comes into its full transcendent being. How many times in conversations, when you've been caught up in the moment and caught up in your own self-talk, that you've reacted quite strongly to a statement and you've judged the person's intent? You actually said, I know what kind of person they are, and I know what they were saying with that remark, and that's not cool, and I'm just going to shoot that down. What you are actually displaying is more about yourself in that moment and your own self-talk than you are about the intent. And even if you were right about that person's intent, if you don't respond to it and you don't judge it and you just take it at face value, if it was meant with a little bit of a sting, it will suddenly start to ease off and it will be a diffusing of the situation. And I'll give you a practical example of myself in this instance. I was doing an ideation session or an idea session with a group of people, and unfortunately there was someone in the audience who I work with who, let's just say, I don't like. Okay? This happens in life. We do judge. But at the moment when I'm facilitating, I do go into a space of deferring judgment, and I'm working with a large group of people. And in those moments of facilitation, I really do think the best of everybody in my audience. I really charge them full of the creative power and trust that they can actually deliver great concepts and ideas. And here I am, front of the room, hosting this large group, and I saw their face, and I couldn't help it. I just smiled. I beamed at them. And then we both had a moment of, that doesn't happen between us. And they couldn't help but smile back. And we had a little laugh of, this is what we could be. This is what we could be if we dropped the political crap. This is what we could be if we stopped judging each other and started celebrating each other and looking for what works and seeing the best in each other and not seeing the faults. Because what we saw in each other that we didn't like had less to do about the other person and more to do with ourselves. And that is why deferring judgment is such a powerful concept. I liken it to mindfulness in the sense that you could sum up all of mindfulness in 2 words: be present. And yet, how difficult is that? That's why we have books on it and courses, and you could go forever on it. That's how deep this concept is. And yet, on some ways, I did say it's hard to do, but it really depends on how you view it. It's not that hard to learn to suspend your judgment momentarily. There are times and there are places where we do need to judge. And then when we come up with a bunch of ideas or creative concepts, etc., we do need to discriminate through them and pick 1 or 2 to develop when we're actually taking something through the process. But it's just learning to ease off on our natural ability to say yes, no, wrong, right, correct that, no, you're going the wrong way, and really just be in the moment. If you have children, if you have partners, if you have friends, if you can be the person that doesn't rush to judge them, you will be somebody that they will actually seek out to spend time with, because you're truly hearing and listening to them. You're responding to them as they really are, not as who you think they should be and the actions that you think they should manifest. And I certainly know after a long-term partnership with my husband that yes, the more that I apply this at home, the nicer it is between the 2 of us. And I really kind of see, if the bed's not made when I get home, that it isn't a conspiracy against me. It's maybe that the cat slept in it all day and he hasn't had a chance to actually do it. And in our house, the cat rules. So I would agree with that. So it's a very powerful concept, and really when it's applied, and I've talked about fun and smaller moments, but when you talk about applying it deeply to relationships, or deeply to concepts in your life. If there's areas in your life, or your professional life, or your personal life, where it's not working, ask yourself, is there something about it that you should be doing, or you think you should do? If the word should comes up as you review that, that is an area where you've agreed on a judgment. You said, well, okay, that's the way it should be. Have a look at some of those shoulds. Those are hints that there are judgment values being placed on it that may not be true. When you start to release yourself from some of those, that is when the door opens to a creative enlightenment. That is when you get a series of breakthroughs that allow you to actually transcend where you are and go into a much bigger space of personal and professional power. And at the end of the day, that is what this book is about. It's about finding the deeper, creative you, but that does require work, but it is well worth the work to get to some place that truly resonates with you and you are your creative strongest. I don't know if that was correct English, but I think it works for the discussion. So, pick up my book. This is just one of the many concepts that are dealt with in here. This book is full of strategies to help you to actually be a more powerful individual and to realize the full extent of your creative powers. I don't call it creative enlightenment for nothing, but it won't necessarily be easy, but it will be worth the journey. So check it out at Kinikuya, and yes, feel free to connect with me on social media, and I look forward to hearing your experiences through your own journey of creative enlightenment. Thank you.